Guys, what's going on? This is Matt with Patriots Corner. Now we're back on for part 2 with Mr. Johnny Beltran and Dougie Gallaher. Guys, what's going on?
Nothing much, man, for you.
Good to be back. It's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. I'm pumped to have both you guys on right now. It's I know people. Part 1 was so sweet. Part 1 was absolutely awesome, and diving into part 2 is just going to get totally better, and it's going to be awesome. John, what's going on?
Nothing, man. I'm still up here in the LA area doing this security detail for my buddy. I told you the team guy. We did a platoon at Team 1. Now he's got his company, Eagle Eye Security Solutions. So we're running this detail. Actually, I'm on it with Taylor, the same guy you did the podcast with yesterday. So it's pretty cool, man. It's fun. It's a great detail. It's a great client. So no complaints at all.
Awesome. Dougie, what's going on with you, man? Anything new?
Yeah, man. I just got back from, so I'm still in the reserve. Stay 18 after I left active duty. And once a year we have to do our annual training, our whole 2-week-a-year thingy. So I got to go 2 weeks out in Virginia Beach. And just got back about 5 days ago. And here I am now getting ready to leave the country here Tuesday, Wednesday. I get my civilian job.
Wow.
Other than that, just hanging out. Yeah, man.
Wow.
Super secret spy job.
I was actually going through some of your podcasts, and you did Jeff Byers, the CEO of Frog Fuel.
Yeah. I had Jeff on the show.
I actually work with him. We do the same job, and then I believe the Ryan. I want to say his last name. He his own shooting company.
Sean.
I think it's Sean.
Yeah, Sean Ryan.
Yeah. So I think he's left that profession, but it's all same job over there.
Yeah, wow. And that is so wild, too. Holy cow. And one thing is how you're saying, civilian job, and do you feel that job in particular, having had all the training that you have had dealt with, even with you, John, is this just like kind of like a second nature type of thing, having had been through the training and even when with the SEAL teams? Dougie, what do you think? I'll ask you first.
Yeah, it is. It's same group of guys, so you still have that common mindset of dudes that you work with. So 90%, 95% of all the dudes all act alike and think alike. The mission set's a little different now as opposed to when I was in the teams. It's go out and find the enemy and kill them. Now it's a little more try to not be seen type deal. But yeah, kind of. It's my prior job in the teams. Kind of, it sets you up for this, and the qualification to get on this program. They want so many years of soft experience and all that good stuff.
Johnny,
what's up? How is it for me?
Yeah.
It's pretty much like Dougie said. It's you get these positions because of who you are, right? And so that's kind of a double-edged sword, because you get some guys that think just because who they were, they deserve the positions. But as Dougie just said, there's still qualification process. Like with mine, it's a little bit different, but you have to use that. I guess your persona, whatever you are as a team guy or a soft operator, and apply that to whatever job you're doing now. So I think it does go second nature, because I think we're able to act. There's a lot of change and schedule changes and this and that. So it's the fluidity that we're used to working on or working with, or working to that level where everything we're spun up to do one thing. You know what? No, it's just changed, and then now we're at change 20, and we go with it and we make it work. So that aspect, I think, is our biggest, and then the ability to turn it on quick, but then turn it right off after we turn it on. If we need to deal with something, we deal with it, then we're back to being our normal selves. So I think that is our, and that goes besides all the shooting and tactical training we had. But I think those are our biggest assets as civilians in the civilian market, like how we operate, how we can, just go with the flow and make things happen. And when they happen, they happen. And when we're not, they don't. So that's kind of my take on it. Obviously Dougie's is a little bit more involved in what they do and in a straight up threat area, but ours same. So that's that's pretty much it.
And how you were saying, how it's a quick reaction, of knowing what to do. That's something that I find so fascinating too, because that is, it's I know it's hard to come by for the ordinary, for the ordinary man, obviously hard to come by, in your reaction on what to do. And I find that so amazing how immediately, you know what to do when something happens or if shit hits the fan. That's incredible.
Yeah, I think that all goes back to the kind of what we talked about in part one. That goes into the just selection in itself. I mean, that's kind of what they breed into you and train into you and beat into you, is they hit you with the most stressful situations and they want to see how you deal with it. And so, I mean, obviously from day one of doing that for however many months, years, it prepares you for when shit does hit the fan, that you've kind of not necessarily seen it, but you've seen some form of it and you just kind of react.
Now, do you feel that, I mean, and Dougie, we can even step back, because I know that in part one we kind of left off with Operation Red Wings, and I could definitely, tell that was a situation where shit obviously did hit the fan. And I was going to ask you, what was your reaction? And if you can kind of walk me through that in what your thought process and everything that was going on, I would love to hear.
Yeah, so, I mean, as far as reaction and thought process, I was, a brand new guy. I was on my first deployment. I was 21 years old. I wasn't really in the senior leadership of making plans and all that. I was just what we call basically sled dog or shooter, just brand new guy. So of course, we were just all about wanting to go get in gunfights and, engage the enemy, do what we signed up to do. So for my aspect, I can kind of remember the day of it. I saw Mike McGreevy walking around breakfast time on the morning of the 28th. And it was just kind of like, hey, sir, like, what's up, man? Where are we going? And he's like, well, just be ready, Dougie. And this was probably about 8:15 in the morning. And then I wanted to say about 11:15, 11:30 Afghanistan time, obviously, is when my LPO, Jeff Taylor, I guess, came running through our barracks and was like, hey, get your shit on. Our boys are in a tick, troop in contact. And I remember screaming, he's like, if you're an AW gunner, grab your saws or 60s. He goes, get your shit on. It's time to go. And then we hopped in trucks, drove to the airfield, waited for the 47s to get up and running, and then we took off from Bagram Airfield. Probably about an hour flight. We went to J-Bad first, which is in southeast Afghanistan area, right on the Pakistan border. So from there, which actually kind of saved us, lo and behold, we found later where the initial take was. It was at like 95, 10,000 feet in the Konar Valley. 1 o'clock this time, they had to kick off 8 dudes from each helicopter just because of altitude and lift and weight from the helicopter. So, I mean, looking back, that actually, thank God that happened. It saved 8 more dudes. And like I was saying, me being a new guy, I was carrying a 48, which is 7.62. And 2 of my best friends that I went through training with were on the other helicopter, which were also carrying AWs. So when we launched from J-Bad, it was 8 and 8, and I was on the trailer helicopter, however you want to call it. So I had no idea who was on the helicopter and who was off the helicopter. I just knew 8 guys got off. Took off went about 30 minutes, and then I remember getting I think it was the 5-minute call and then 3-minute call. And we were actually going to fast rope down, so we started putting our gloves on and all that good stuff. The flight, we were passing around a little whiteboard, and from my chief, it was like, if we take contact, the TF-60 birds, their windows are actually outfitted to be punched out by muzzle barrels, just for that very reason, just so you have more guns. So that board went around. We're like, yeah, all right, got it, cool. And then the first helicopter was on its 1 minute, because I remember listening to them on the radio. It was McGreevy and a couple other guys. I want to say, I think we were at like the 3-minute, and they were at the 30-second, something like that. But as soon as they started flaring to land is when we kind of saw a smoke trail from our helicopter. Saw the bird, kind of flipped over, and then it hit the mountainside and just and then we flew around for 30, 45 minutes trying to get clearance to land, because I mean, at that point we weren't really sure what happened on impact. We just knew the bird went down. So flew around 30, 40. What's up? Go for it.
I was going to say, if I could ask you, when that all happened, did that alter your focus on what the mission was? I mean, having had seen that, had to have just been a shock.
So, yeah, again, I guess this just goes back to me being very, very young, and I mean, been in the teams all about 20 minutes at this point. And my chief actually walked up to us within probably about a minute or two, and this just went from being a DA to a CSAR. It took me a couple of minutes to comprehend like what he really meant through that. And so yeah, to answer your question, it kind of threw us for a loop. And I think we were still in the state of like, oh, did that really just happen?
What is a DA from a CSAR? CSAR
direct action. Direct action. So that's what we were originally planning to do. We sent the 4 guys out the night before, obviously, who are based on the movie Lone Survivor. They went out the night before. They were eyes on the target. My platoon was actually going to fly in the next period of darkness, and we were going to hit the target to get the guy once they got 100% confirmation that he was there. And then, so obviously it went from being that to kind of QRF, which Quick Reaction Force, to go help them out, to CSAR, which was Combat Search and Rescue.
Wow.
So
yeah,
go for it.
I was going to say, yeah, so now the quick alter and the quick change, was it still the same like objective, or still the same? And I'm sure you'll get to that. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I mean, even asking on how you were saying direct action and then search and rescue, is it still the same objective as to what had just happened? I mean, like a retaliation type of factor, or I mean, does obviously that, I'm sure that plays into everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately we never landed, unfortunately, just because higher ups and all that, I think they were afraid of losing another helicopter. So, but yes, I would say if we did land, we probably would have secured the crash site and seen what, any survivors, whatnot, and then we probably would have proceeded with the actual main objective. Or at that point, it would have probably just been, slugging it out with whoever was on the ground at that point.
Wow. So you didn't land, and what had happened after that?
So we circled around for about 30 minutes trying to get clearance, and again, I think they were more worried about losing a expensive helicopter at that point. So we went back to JBAD, got off the MH-47s, and one of the coolest things I still to this day remember, when we all left the MH-47, there was like 2 sticks full of Marines, probably 15, 20 dudes each in perfect stick formation. And they boarded right back on that same helicopter that we just got off, the same one that basically got shot out of the sky. And it was just kind of cool to see that. Obviously, they knew what happened, and without hesitation, they all marched right back on the bird. So we got on smaller aircraft. We got on 60s, which are Blackhawks, and it was 5 or 6 team guys on each one, and we had 3 or 4 Marine AW gunners.
Okay.
And then so we took back off, and we were going to land, obviously, in a different spot and do a foot patrol. We got about 15 minutes in the air, and then I remember the birds kind of doing like a Yui almost.
Sure.
And then I remember flying back and seeing some of the same like villages that we just passed, and we kind of started asking on radios and comms, what the fuck's going on. And they're like, hey, we're RTBing. I guess there was a big storm coming in. And to this day, if that's the real reason or not, but that was the reason they gave us, that some big storm was coming in. So we ultimately landed, and it was kind of shut down for that night.
So, John,
go for it.
I was going to ask, John, at this point, do you know anything that is kind of going on? Or because did you have any word of this or hear any word that this was even happening?
No, not at all. I didn't get word till we heard I had heard some chatter about something at work. Well, actually not at work. I wasn't even in bed then. I think I was out already. And I had heard from chatter from some guys team guys, but nothing. And then we got positive confirmation that a TF-160 bird had been shot down, QRF. So my immediate thought was, and I know this kind of sucks, but it was kind of my own selfish reasons, was, that's usually Rangers go on QRF all the time, I'm thinking it's a Ranger battalion, or, just trying not to think it was a fucking group of team guys, and especially with him being there. And so my mom called me frantically, did you hear about it? Yeah, I got it. I heard, and I'm just trying to stay calm because what else are you going to do? You get frantic, and, it's not worth it. So I called the XO of Log Sioux, it's our logistics. It was a team guy, but the guy I knew that was the XO there. And I called him, and I called a couple other guys I had just done a platoon with. And I'm like, hey, have you guys heard anything? So the first guy to get back to me was this guy, Alex, and he's like, hey, dude, it is team guys. He goes, what's your brother's name? So I told him. So he got back to me about 3 hours later, and he's like, I can't confirm, but I'm pretty sure he's okay. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't help me, pretty sure. So it's one of these things you cannot do a frickin' thing about, man. I was there. I'm thinking I literally almost died 2 or 3 years ago in that frickin' country, and this goes on. Like, what are the odds? So I think my main thing was damage control with my parents, because my mom was frantic. My dad, even though he was, pretty calm and collective about it, you could tell he was completely disturbed. So my thing was like, look, I don't think it's him. I've been getting, passed down. Nothing's official, but that he's okay. We know it's a few team guys, but we don't know the magnitude. We don't know whatever, whatever else. And then that was, I think, the next day or whatever that it came out. Then I got the story, what it was, who it was. But yeah, man, I mean, from my perspective as the big brother, and you whether or not, I mean, Dougie's by far surpassed me in the team guy world, as a professional, and an operator. But still, at that point, he's still a new guy. I had just gotten out, and you get that big brother protective mindset, whatever, and it pissed me off, dude, that I couldn't be there. It was just like, what the hell's going on? So it was, it sucked, dude, because there's nothing you can do about it, man. Nothing. It's you hear about it, and not to know and not have closure was the biggest part. It's an emotional toll, and then it goes back to reactivating or triggering, whatever the buzzword is for psychology these days, but for reactivating all my thoughts about what happened to me, and then what happened to him, and then
sure,
what he must have felt like when he got the call, when I got shot, and now what I'm feeling like. It's just like, it was ridiculous. So so many emotions running through you, but there's again, there's nothing. It's so ambiguous at that point because you don't know. So when I found out, it still sucked. We lost X amount of guys in one shot, literally. But him not being part of it, or him not on the ground, or I'm sorry, him not, or still being alive, that not being one of him that was killed. It's a relief, but then that relief's it's a slight, it's subtle, because you're now thinking, okay, well, we still lost a bunch of team guys. He's still there. They're still going to go out and go do recovery or whatever, and so what the game plan is. So that, hey, it happened, but you're not out of harm's way. So yeah, I mean, dude, it sucked. It wasn't one of these things like in the movies. You're all sitting there proud and looking at your medals and all. It's more like, holy shit, just kind of sitting there quiet. Like, what the hell's going on? So yeah, that was my take on the whole thing, man.
Now, Dougie, to kind of jump back into what, I can only imagine what was going through your head. When you had gotten back, what was going through your head?
So, not funny, but I still remember pretty vivid to this day, after we punched out the windows, and I think a couple dudes on my bird started taking shots. I remember just flying, and for a couple seconds, I mean, I kind of joked about it now, but I was like, because I was expecting it was a matter of time till another missile or whatever hit our bird, and I was like, I wonder what pictures my mom's gonna have at my funeral memorial. I was like, it better not be one of those stupid boot camp pictures with my one little ribbon. And that was kind of like the one thing going through my mind, and that's what I was thinking about at that point for 5-10 seconds. But I was like, she better have some badass pictures of me with a big ass beard and out here for the 3 months that I was here. And so, I mean, yeah, weird stuff goes through your mind at that point in time. But so yeah, when we landed, it was as I was saying, two of my best friends were on the first helicopter I went through training with, and we all went to Team 10 together. And again, they were carrying big guns as I was, and I thought they were done. I thought for sure that they were on the helicopter. And I remember one of them walking up to me, and they just kind of we kind of hugged it out, whatnot. And I think it was a couple weeks later, he's like, dude, when we walked up to you and you saw our faces, you just went pale. It was like you saw a ghost. And I was like, well, man, I was flying around for 45 minutes, and I thought you guys were done. I thought so. Caveat to that story: the Team 10 guys, my buddies, and a couple other guys were actually supposed to be on the bird, but Senior Chief Healy of SDV-1 in mid-flight went up to my LPO Jeff Taylor, and he's like, hey man, because apparently it was supposed to be all the Team 10 guys were supposed to be on the first ones on the ground, and he's like, hey, these are our guys on the ground, the SDV guys. He goes, do you mind having your boys, or no, I'm sorry, it wasn't mid-flight, it was when they landed at JBED. Do you mind kicking off Team 10 guys, letting us SDV guys be the first ones to get our boys? And JT was like, yeah, man. He goes, that's team guy shit. Let's do it. So that's ultimately what saved eight of the Team 10 guys that were on board.
So it's even hard for just the level of heroism and patriotism that you both have is just so it's absolutely incredible, and it just really, really, truly defines how special people are born with special things in order to do special things. You guys being, those guys, it being able to react quickly and then have the fuel in the fire to go back and, get the job done. That is absolutely fucking amazing. There's no way around it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I appreciate that. It's one of those things, man. I think we were either, born kind of, and somehow things just shaped us in this lifestyle. But I mean, yeah, I mean, just like as I was telling earlier, the Marines that were, just grunt Marines who were standing there in perfect line, waiting to get back on the helicopter, just that got shot out of the sky. So I mean, it really is pretty cool that there's Americans out there that are willing to give it all for the safety and country.
Yeah.
What's awesome is like what he said, right? The how stupid his thought was about the funeral and what pictures my mom was going to put on. Because when I got shot, the first thing I thought was, it's obviously on our last podcast, so I won't get into the story. But first thing I thought was, oh, fuck, I'm going to die on his going away party. So everything he has, a memory of the Navy, is me getting shot and killed. So it was just, I'm going to mess his party up. That was my thing. It's like it's supposed to be this freaking joyous pantomime of drinking and having fun, but it was my thing was yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna suck for him because now I just died on his going away party, and I guess that thought process is what makes us who we are, because it's not like the movies, like, oh, tell my wife I love him type thing, even though I mean neither of us were married at the time, but it was it's just these thoughts that come into your head, and I think those actually help cope and keep you level-headed. It's not just us. A lot of other team guys and Marines I know, when shit hits the fan, the things they think of are just so ancillary to what you're going through, but it's still tied in, but it's not like part of, oh great, I'm going to die right now. It's something else. So
well, that's what I find, like, in honesty, and and me saying this in absolutely no disrespect, find the craziness and the wildness the fucking most badass. You know what I mean? Like, it's just wow. Like, that is something that I think certain people, and not going into a negative, would think is way too out of their realm, and then other people would see that and just say, holy shit, having the ability to have as strong as mindset as that, is just would be absolutely incredible. I seriously, truly believe that. I think that's wow, that is insane. But in a badass, totally incredible, insane way. You know what I mean? Highlighting the fact of certain guys doing certain jobs, and kind of the same thing I said with Taylor. I mean, it's wow.
And not
yeah,
just
I think you have to have or go for it, Johnny.
No, just real quick, I was going to say, not just that, it's both of these things happened to us when we were new guys, our first platoon. So,
that just adds more to the
well, and I'm saying too, but just per human nature, and just having empathy or being sympathetic to what guys go through, it warranted every reason for us to get out and say, you know what, I'm done. That happened, but it's the opposite. It's like, fuck, this happened. I want to go back now, and even more so. And I'm going to train harder and go kill more people. It's that whole, you don't think that I'm going to get out and I'm scared again, like the movies. Guy gets out because he's shook up. It's like, hell no, dude. I'm going to go back, and this is what I was trained to go. I wanted to go do this since I was a little kid. This is not. It's just part of the job, essentially, but a shitty part, but part of it.
Dougie, I was even going to ask you that. Did you have that just fire in your stomach at the time, as like, I want to go back out there and I want to, look for these guys. You know what I mean? Like, did you have that feeling instantly, or, even in that day?
Oh yeah, 100%. So following that night, actual SEAL Team 6 flew down, and they kind of took over the whole situation. They went back out a couple nights later. Actually took some dudes from Team 10, because again, team guys being team guys, they're like, hey, those are your boys on the ground. So they actually kicked off some of their dudes and put some of our dudes on the helicopters, which I thought was pretty fucking cool. Being 21, looking up to these guys your whole life. But yeah, man, it was nothing more than we went back in like 3 or 4 times. The first one was for like 5 or 6 days, and then some dudes came back, and then we went back for our long one when we got the last 3 bodies, which was Axe, Mike Murphy, and there was one more. I think we got Dietz first. I think Axe and Murphy were the last two that we got. Or Axe, I know for sure was the last body that we recovered. But yeah, I mean, the whole time flying back in, we, like what Johnny was saying earlier, we obviously knew the dangers. We were going back in helicopters at night, relatively the same area, knew what happened, but it was just, hey, get us on the ground. And once we're on the ground, we'll dominate these fuckers. And then that goes even more when we left the country. I remember I had 1 foot on the ground, 1 foot on the C-17. We were getting ready to redeploy back home. I kind of looked up, in the stars and sky, and I was like, I will be back to this country. It took me 5 years to get back, and my wife was 5.5, 6 months pregnant at the time. But they asked for volunteers to go back to Afghanistan. That was kind of a little promise I made to myself that I will be back. So I volunteered to go, and I got back 2.5 weeks, I think, before she gave birth to our first daughter.
Wow. And that is just... Wow. That is incredible.
Yeah, so that was 2005, and I got back there in 2011. So 6 years I waited, but I had to go back for myself.
Now, was there any ever risk you having had been there, especially during an operation that will remain historic, forever? Was there a risk of these guys knowing who you were, meaning the bad guys, the terrorists, was there any...
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because I mean, just like the Extortion 17, which we just had the anniversary for, the August 6th, the Damnet guys that got hit. To those guys, it was just a helicopter, and there happened to be a shithead in the one lucky spot, and he fired a RPG or missile or whatever it was, and those guys had no idea who was on that helicopter. Obviously, they knew they were going to help other Americans, but yeah, it was just kind of, at that point, it was a lucky shot, lucky guess.
Well, I wanted to ask you, I believe I actually asked the same question. I had Lalo Roberti on the show as well.
Okay.
And I think I asked him the same question. Whether, I'm going to ask you anyways, whether it was factual or not, when the town that kind of took in Marcus Luttrell, what kind of happened to them afterwards? That's something that often kind of I asked over and over again in my head, is that here these guys are out, in the middle of nowhere, what was their threat level like kind of at that time?
Well, so that's their whole, it's their custom. If they find a guest or someone, they're bound to protect him and until he reaches safety. Those guys were in constant threat because obviously the bad guys knew that they were harboring him and protecting him. That's why it took a while, but that's why they got the actual guy who was the main dude who saved Marcus back to the States, just from constant, threats and stuff like that. I to be quite honest, I never really followed too much, what actually happened with the actual villagers and stuff who took him in. But I can say just from knowing a little bit that they constantly got harassed and messed with. And speaking of Lilo, he was actually one of the guys who I was telling you about, and that was one of my best friends I went through training with, who was on the first bird. He was actually the one that walked up to me and said that you look like a ghost when you saw me, because he was on the first helicopter, and he was one of the dudes that got booted off when we landed at J-Bed.
Wow. Holy shit. And what had happened kind of, after that? The next step, was there a going back out, or was there, search and rescue that did take place? I know you said when you recovered the bodies, but if you're able to walk through that kind of, what happened then?
Yeah, so we took off, I think it was like July 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere in that realm, and we went out. We landed long ways away, probably like 9-10 Ks, because we hiked pretty much all day to get to the village where he was at. He was already Marcus was already rescued at that point. I think they flew him out a couple nights prior, but Axe was still missing. So we went to the same village, and we were there for probably 5-6 days, I want to say. And our dudes who do their thing were talking to the locals and trying to get info and do all that good stuff. And finally they reached some agreement, and they took I don't know, probably 15, 20 of us to where the body was, because he was a little ways away from the initial tick. I think he just kind of crawled and walked his last couple 100 yards that he could. And so we got him, and I think after we flew him out, I think we took off like a day and a half, 2 days later.
And you were out of there.
Yep, we left. Place was at that point. The place was that kind of was the number one. Pretty much the whole country shut down, up doing pretty much everything, and that was the number one focus of all U.S. military and coalition forces at that point. That's why we didn't really encounter too much resistance or from the shitheads, because we had constant everything that you can name, from Apaches, the A-10s, the F-18s, everything was in the sky above us. And I think they knew that. There was Marines scattered throughout the hillsides, and Army SF was everywhere. We saturated that place. But yeah, we took off, and that was really it. And then going back to the initial us leaving, we were supposed to rotate out of there like 2.5 weeks prior to that, us actually launching on that mission. And then our sister platoon came in a couple of weeks early, because we were down so many guys, obviously, at that point. And we kind of started doing turnover ops with them, and we flew out like July 18, 19, 20, somewhere around there.
And John, once you found out that Dougie was alive and out of that area, what was the feeling of relief that you had gotten?
Extreme, like I said, extreme sigh of relief, man. My brother's alive, But then comes part two, where what's the follow-on operation? And I knew I wasn't going to be able to talk to him. He's busy. So it's not like, he's going to call me, hey, everything's, we talk for an hour or anything. It was just knowing that they're going to go out there, they're going to do that with protocol. I was still asking guys, like, okay, are they going out? Are they going on more ops? I was trying to get as much info as I can, or intel from guys, so I knew for my own, essay or situational awareness, my own notification, whatever you want to say. I knew for myself that he was out there with obviously not just freaking teams, or not, let's just say soft, best of the best guys, but every other guy out there supporting him, every asset, air asset. So, probably he'd be pretty safe. It's just, hoping that he'd keep his head and not do anything, irrational, because you don't know when you're in that situation, or you don't know until you've been in that situation how you're going to act. So just for me, it was just like, God, please let this go accordingly. Let them smoke as many of these bastards as possible. Let them find these guys. Let's get closure on it. All that good stuff. But again, it was, hey, he's alive. He's good. What's phase two? And then immediately for me, it was thinking, all right, how am I going to have to talk to him when he gets back? I don't want to raise up sensitive stuff. I know how people were with me, and, nonchalantly and in all good grace, and people didn't mean to, but, people say stupid stuff like, oh, did it hurt when you get shot, or this or that? It's like, dude, really? Like, so just little triggers that people are just so oblivious to. So I was just, my thing was, okay, when he gets back, when we talk to him, we got to cope, and we got to be sensitive with this, because it is sensitive. Yeah, he's a warrior through and through, but there's still stuff that you need to be a little bit aware of. And that's kind of what was my main thing, was just, how am I going to be able to help him get through this emotionally? Because I know he's got the physical part, but it's like, dude, yeah, I didn't go through what you went through, but I understand the traumatic situation very well, and what do I need to do, man, as a brother, as a team guy, as just somebody. So that was it. That's it wasn't too like in depth. That was it. Literally cut and dry. That's what I was thinking.
Dougie, when you got home, did you ever have any of those kind of thoughts? As far as if somebody was going to come up to you and ask you something totally obscene and inappropriate, during the time at play?
I guess yes and no. It wasn't really like again. I mean, I was still pretty young. I was, still 22, I guess 23 when I started my second platoon. I don't know. I guess going home, like, people are going to ask questions and, stuff like that. But I think most people tried to leave it very open to me to start talking about. I think for the most part, like family members and all that did a pretty good job of if I wanted to talk about it and then they'd listen. I never, but as far as like other people, relatively I would say after that happened, it was just, that was a shitty day in Afghanistan. It wasn't such a big deal. Yeah, I think it was when like the book and then the movie came out is when I started getting like, stupid questions like what you just said. And people would come up to me and be like, oh, dude, Lone Survivor is such a great movie. I was like, well, it's a great movie for you because you're seeing actors on there dying. But to me, it's a horrible movie because those were my friends that, and wives that I used to know and kids that I used to go to their birthdays, and now they're widows and they're fatherless. I was like, so to me, that movie's nothing but fucking shitty. It might be a bunch of actors dying, but, it's real life for me. And so I think that started coming out more when it became a little more, in the limelight and all that stuff. But I think for the first couple of years, it wasn't, as talked about. It was just a shitty day.
Sure. And, that's something where I often even wondered as far as, the homecoming, because even the politics of, did you ever wonder what was going to be coming out in the news and how you were going to react? I'm sure it had to be frustrating as all shit. I saw this, one interview after the movie, it did come out on CNN with Marcus Luttrell, and I won't even get into half of it, but the guy asked completely asinine questions where he should have just been roasted for the questions that he did ask.
Yeah, I saw the same thing. That's just the media being the media, being a bunch of idiots and trying to stir the pot of things. I think Marcus handled that quite well by not hopping off that chair and punching him in the face.
That's what I said, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think that would have been hard to hold back. But yeah, it was the whole, do you feel that these guys pretty much died for nothing, blah, 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 and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it just, like I said, I think as it started getting more and more the book and the movie and all that stuff, it is when the stupid stuff started coming out.
That is it's so true, man, when people say that, like, it's so annoying. People say, do you think they died for nothing? Well, first of all, we put on a uniform, right? Like, a buddy of mine, I'll just keep his name as CK. Former Delta Force Master Sergeant or whatever, badass dude, 24 years at CAG. I was working with him, and this is just kind of what I'm setting the stage for. I was working with him one time, and it came up, and I was like, you know what, dude, I would never compare myself to you or your career, freaking badass Tier 1 operator. I did, 6 years, and you did 24 with one of the best units in the world. And he looked at me, and he's like, hey, dude, he's like, you don't ever freaking discount yourself, don't ever do that shit. You were a team guy, better than 99% of the military. He goes, then you put on the uniform, which is, better than 95% of the population. He goes, just to do that takes, not just balls, but it takes some courage. So when people say, hey, did you think they died for no reason? Dude, we went to combat for a specific reason. It's just, I can't fathom when people ask that question, because it doesn't matter if it's a Army infantry guy, a Marine, our guys, when they die, no, it's absolutely not for no reason, you know. But I don't think people get that. They see Hollywood, they see the movies, and they, you know, they think it's just really stupid, man. So that's kind of my point on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you know, that was my thought process. Even, you know, just watching that, I was just, you know, I mean, it was just like, oh my God, you know, why are you even asking these questions? And, you know, even if it is just to grab some sense of attention, you know, and oh, be all, who the fuck is gonna watch this and enjoy the questions that this, you know, jackass is asking? But, but ultimately, you know, one thing I did want to also ask about that, Dougie, is when that all did kind of take place and when everything was happening, did you feel that even the reaction of knowing immediately what to do, you know, even going from punching out the window and any type of direction you were going in was just clicking? You know, aside from other thoughts that you were having at the time, you know, was everything still clicking, you know, immediately?
Yeah, it was 100%. I mean, I still remember after the bird got hit, you know, I was putting my goggles on, still putting my gloves on, because you know, up until this point, that happened. I thought we were still fast roping down. Yeah, again, being 21 and not really knowing too much. But yeah, I mean, after that, still throwing on my fast rope gloves, and I was slinging my gun to get ready to go, and obviously we just started flying around in circles, so I kind of took all that stuff back off. But so yeah, to answer your question, I mean, everything was still what I needed to do at that point in time. It was still all, you know, I was doing it without hesitation and without having to be told or whatever.
Didn't you not have your gloves on or something, you said, but you were like, fuck it, I want to get off this bird or something like that, or you had to put them on real quick or something like that? You were just like, I remember you saying something like that, which was awesome. Was you were just like,
I had zero gloves on, and then as we started getting closer and closer, I put my mechanics gloves on, and then when that happened and we started getting ready to, I think we were on like the 1 minute call, I was gonna throw my fast rope gloves on, but at that point I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go down like this. If it burns, it burns. But I mean, yeah, I just wanted to get off the helicopter at that point in time.
God damn. Shit, it's badass as anything. Wow. Dougie, thank you for sharing that. That was...
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Good to talk about. Keep those guys' memories alive and all that good stuff. And it kind of goes into what we were just talking about, the whole, you know, JT actually had a pretty good quote, Jeff Taylor, and it was on a letter he sent home to his wife. And it said, bring the fight to them so they may never bring it home to us again. And ultimately, as what Johnny was saying, that's why we got sent out there. And the more we were out there, the more we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, disrupting their networks and targeting them every single night. They weren't able to plan stuff and carry out stuff like they did on 9/11. But like, if you guys are following the news, you know, that house they just found in New Mexico with Muslims who were training, you know, kids to go shoot up schools. It's definitely here, and I would say it would happen a lot more if we weren't out there, you know, disrupting their networks and them using all their money and financial stuff to fight us overseas.
And that is something that I find so incredibly interesting, is how I don't feel, I ask it on every show, I don't feel that enough people even acknowledge the fact that this stuff could come, and it does downplay what you guys are doing, you know, and that's something that I will never understand, is exactly within that quote, is how some people would not understand that and not understand the sacrifice that you guys make, you know, leaving your family, going into extremely high intensity situations, and then this shit pops up, you know, in Mexico. It's nuts.
Ridiculous.
I remember I did when I had Dan Cirillo on the show, he had said that there was a professor I believe he said it at it was a college in North Carolina. I'm almost 100% sure he said Chapel Hill, who was coming over and teaching curriculum at Chapel Hill and then going overseas over to the Middle East to be a terrorist. He was playing both ends of it, and they were going in after him. So just seeing all the types of shit, it's nuts.
No, it is. I mean, I think people just want to live in their, their bubbles and make believe that none of this stuff exists. And the ones us guys going over there, we're just going over it to get our jollies off and all that good stuff. But I they're in their bubble and they want to make believe that the world's a safe place and nothing's ever going to happen to them.
God. So I mean, as far as even that stuff, kind of diving into what you guys are doing with Task Force Zombie, that ties into it. I'm not going to introduce all the kick-ass stuff that you guys have going on right now. I want you guys to do that. I mean, you're doing it. I mean, you guys have a shit ton of cool stuff coming out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Johnny hit on the ballistic stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, with TFZ, we have obviously our precision ammo line, which I've been getting a lot of good ideas out here, to kind of expand that line or to pinpoint different markets. The goal for us is to get actual ammo we developed, right? So that's, going to take a lot of money or an investment, but that would be the ultimate goal where, we have our own ammo now. It's not, we don't resell, it's ours, but something that we actually developed. That's our ammo. That's the goal. So with that, we have a new ballistic from my buddy. Actually, he's on Instagram and Facebook and all that. It's SWAT Digest or ITOTA. My buddy Kevin out in Indiana. He's an active SWAT officer, SWAT sergeant in Indiana. And they have a company called EBR Ammo. So through that, they've also have a company called Vigo Armor that they just developed. Basically, his business partner, John, their family had a ballistic product that was like a polyurethane combo, and it was part of the Humvee or the JERV or tactical vehicle 7-layer armor. And we've now taken that and we're partnered with them where we're going to kind of run all this distribution and ideas out here on the West Coast and whatever contacts we have and use our connects to basically push this stuff. So what it is it's a moldable ballistic plastic, right?
Yes.
It comes, in the raw materials, and then once it's liquefied, it can be poured into any mold you want. So literally, we can take it's a friend of mine, a good buddy of mine that was my marketing professor. He's like, essentially what you guys have was glass that 100 years ago. He's like, that's what you have now. It's about how you push it out there. So, Justin, his name, he was giving me all these different ideas, but we have a moldable ballistic product that's already been proven in the DOD and in the military. So it's not like something we just came up with on our, we saw it in a dream and we came up with it. No, this is like legitimate. It's stuff that's already been used. It's 30% lighter than most normal glass, and it can be molded. So we can do it in clear or opaque, that frosty looking color. And we can take it and whatever we want to do, we can do desks for, schools, office buildings. We can do your normal plates. But in that aspect, we don't want to compete in that plate market because there's so many, awesome companies, Defender and all these other ones that make these high-end plates that are light and, some are inexpensive, some are really expensive. Our market is more those parallels where it's, okay, we can outfit a whole room with this stuff. If we have, the design, we can get these sheets made to go into walls, and now people can make ballistic safe houses. We can do skins of cars if we have the mold of the door. We can do all this stuff a lot easier than most of these other people have because we have a moldable ballistic product. So the thickness dictates the ballistic capability. So our 3As, which are stopping all pistol rounds, we're at about 1/2 inch. We're getting and that's why I say we're not going to compete in the plate market, because our AK ones are 2.5 inches thick. Nobody's going to wear a 2.5 inch plate. But if you put that 2.5 inch plate in a building or a desk or somewhere where that can easily be flipped over or taken off a wall or whatever, and now you actually have a ballistic product, that's the goal. So it is truly a life-saving, do-good project that is completely new in the market in that aspect, where it's moldable. Again, tons of phenomenal armor companies out there, but none quite like this. And then the kicker to this is actually why John brought this to our attention 3 years ago. He just literally said a sentence, and I'm like, I'm sold. He's like, hey, can you and your brother get the prepper market? I'm like, well, sure. What for? He's like, well, we have this moldable ballistic stuff that we can ship to people in a DIY capacity. So they get the raw materials. If they have their mold, they can make it, obviously following a very legal, and very precise instructional order, because if not, then they're not going to have anything ballistic if they cut corners. But they can make their own ballistic plates. They can make their own ballistic shields for their safe rooms, for bug out rooms, whatever they want. But we're looking at that to develop, or we're not developed, we've already developed it. We're just waiting on a couple small things with some specs. But as far as it goes, it's ready. So that's where we're going to throw it out there. We're going to start with the inserts, where we have these inserts, and we're making them into things that can be used for 2-3 functions. For kids, are they little whiteboards that they can write on? Are they clipboards? It's all this different stuff, but it's really ballistic. To put that in their backpack. So you don't have a plate. And again, the plates are awesome. You have a plate in your backpack, but for a 9-year-old, hey, this clipboard he's writing on, nobody knows, but it's a freaking ballistic, clipboard, or it's a ballistic whiteboard. So all kinds of awesome applications that we can do with this. And it's just one of these things. It's a game changer, right? Like, now
it's revolutionary.
Yes.
Totally revolutionary
about it. And again, the reason why I'm so sold on it is because it's already been used and already been proven within the military. So it's not just something that, okay, it's going to take 4 years of R&D. It's been there. We're just taking it to the commercial market. So, now maybe somebody that's not going to go spend $600 on a plate can spend, $100, $150 on a clipboard for their son, or for a whiteboard, a little that they can write on, or for their daughter. But it's really a ballistic plate, right? Because I guess our whole thing is, looking the way these assholes operate, these active shooters and all these psychopaths, they're there to kill and carnage and cause mayhem to as many people as possible. So if they go into a target and now they start shooting in a room and they start hitting ballistic stuff, well then they go to the next target, right? And again, on that, there's so many other things out there for schools, for safe rooms, but a lot of them take some thought. And to be honest with you, you're really going to train a junior high or a middle school kid or a high school kid how to do this stuff under stress when they're about to die? Or is it so easy just to flip a desk up, or to close a door, or take a freaking board off of a wall, and now they have something to protect themselves? So, it's being realistic. Is it going to stop every death? I don't know. I would hope so, but that's probably not. If somebody wants to kill somebody, it's just, and they don't mind getting caught or offing themselves, it's a lot more difficult to stop that mindset. But if we can save a lot of people in the process, where it's like, okay, they start shooting at something, holy shit, it's not going through, well, let's go to the next target then. So, we're looking at hardening these targets, but keeping the aesthetics of the targets the same. So it's not fortified. Kids aren't scared to go to school, or people aren't scared to go to work, but yet their office is ballistic. Their closet in their house is, we put some beefier locks on it, and a ballistic door, ballistic walls, and now they have a safe room with comms in it that they can call. The police are there in 3-4 minutes. So it's awesome. But again, it goes hand in hand with the ammo market, because it's funny, because everyone's like, well, you guys make instruments of death and to save people. I'm like, yeah, we're full circle. But it's great because it's they both complement each other, and they're just whatever, man. It's realistic, right? When the zombies do come, or that day comes, you can be the best survival expert in the world, but if you can't protect yourself or go out and handle business, then all those skills are just going to be put to waste when somebody stronger comes and takes it from you. So we're looking at how do we have sustainability in these type of markets, or just in everyday life where people can feel safe. So, but it's great, man. It's the exact scientific name I won't put out and all, but let's just use it's a moldable ballistic plastic, lights a glass, plastic polyurethane combo that's actual ballistic body armor, or not body armor, but bulletproof stuff. So yeah, it's really cool, man.
Shit, yeah, that is sweet.
Kind of hit on that. It sucks that we have to even have this conversation, but gotta be, that this is the world that we live in now. It's not, apples and oranges and everything's all nice. So there's psychopaths out there that are planning stuff right now to do this stuff. And if you look at schools, how much money do schools spend on, fires and, fire drills and all that? Walls being painted with, fire retardant paint, and desks being made certain ways so they don't burn, and, floors and carpet so they don't burn, and stairwells being nothing but bricks so they don't burn. Hundreds of millions of dollars going fire, stuff. When was the last school fire that actually killed kids? I think it was in like the 70s. But we still spend money. They still do fire drills. That's kind of the past. And unfortunately, the new threat is these psychopaths out there want to go in there and cause harm to children. So I'm spending money on ballistic or whatever protection you can is kind of the wave of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I even think, like, about what you guys are coming out with is just something that could just prevent so much, and it is so revolutionary to where even if per se somebody was going in, to take out the psycho who's got this crazy head about him to where he's going to go in and kill kids, if that is known, and it might even cause less issues to begin with. You know what I mean? Knowing that this, and sure, I guess they wouldn't know. I think about it now, but I mean, still, just the amount of problems that this would solve, I just see it as something totally incredible, like a really remarkable discovery.
Absolutely. And it's easy, right? It's simple. And if people want to DIY, they can do it themselves. Yeah, man. It's definitely revolutionary. And again, yeah, fire drills or whatever the case, you spend that money on protection, and then they do drills with it and they understand how to use it. So, right, a fireproof, door or fireproof whatever doesn't protect or save everybody's lives, but sure saves a hell of a lot of them. So that's what our focus is with this.
I gotta ask you guys too, and I'm sure I've asked it again, so forgive me if I don't remember, but I think it's totally kick-ass. Where did the name come from? Task Force Zombie. It's such a fucking badass name. I love it.
Oh, Dougie, he can tell you.
Yeah, so it actually came from overseas task force, blue, green, red. That's all the blue is ST6, and green is the Army unit, and a couple other units. So that's the name that's given to the Tier 1 best operators overseas. So we kind of got the task force from that, TF. And then Zombie, just, trying to have fun with it. And just not trying to be another ammo manufacturer that makes rounds. Trying to hit out to the prepper community and all that good stuff. And so our first vision was to do ammo, but to try to do more stuff, and the whole bug outfits and, the whole prepper stuff and doomsday, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, John, Warriors Left Behind. What's going on, man? That's yeah.
Our problem is getting people to trust the sign up, So it's just, quite honestly, we got a lot going on. It's just, we need to hit that hard and get this out there to people. Like, hey, this is, and I know we talked about it on our first one. That was, the whole premise of it. But it's like, we're signing up people to join, to become a dealer or a service provider on it, because we are truly trying to do the heavy lifting of all these military veteran dependent families that have small businesses that are struggling. And so we're trying to make this community. And, to be honest, I went to San Diego Startup Week about a month and a half ago, and there is a whole bunch of nonprofits, some better than others. Let's just put it that way. Some are truly legit. Some just call themselves a nonprofit. But, we're very forthcoming and tell people, look, we're a for-profit company, but this is why we're for-profit. And then we have our nonprofit portion with the 8-count challenge, which we're still, I don't see as many people. I'd like to see, if we can get 100 people off this to do that 8-count challenge. 100 people do the challenge, whether they have to donate $1 or whether they do all 20. And, we have to give them, a consolation prize, which we're supposed to be getting shirts in to give them. But, we want to get this challenge done so we can start getting people aware, and then, maybe even shifting our focus. We were going to do, the whole thing was care packages, but, hey, maybe care packages are played out. So maybe we're going to donate to a cause, through this money. So, this money comes in and we can donate it to, this type of charity that's helping, the families of wounded guys, or helping guys get special limbs and shit that they can't pay for. So whatever the case is, that's the nonprofit portion. But we need, driving awareness to people. It's just like, this is what WLB is. We're a service provider like Amazon, Angie's List, Home Advisor, but for vets, military, or dependent-on businesses. Our whole thing is to do, and that's actually, Dougie was one of the ones that came up with the original idea with our other buddy John, about the spouses and all. So, I mean, he can hit on that real quick so you can get his perspective. But, for mine, it's just like, look, we want to do the heavy lifting. And as I said in the first podcast, let's use Fort Polk as an example. You have a very talented wife that's making some little cases for iPhones or something designed, whatever. And she's got 4 kids. Her husband's an E4. He's always gone. He's been to combat. He's got stress. That business is going to have a hard time, breaking through and getting some, into the marketplace and being successful. So as both of our wives having small businesses, we're just like, let's do the heavy lift. Let's do the marketing for them. And we're obviously business owners ourselves with the ammo. We know how hard the struggle is. So let's get this on board, and let's, are we going to compete with Amazon? No. Are we going to be with Angie's List? No. But let's get that little niche market and let's run with it. Let's really put our money where our mouth is and show people, hey, look, when you sign up, this is how it's going to happen. This is, these are the success rates. And, if you do this challenge, this is where the money's going. So yeah, it's just, it's good. It's obviously lengthy because it's obviously a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, 100% with this company, but we really, it's a longevity thing. We need to get people to sign up and all. So that's my one salesman plug for this. Is just, take a look at it, contact us direct, and we'll, tell you what Warriors left. It's what is it? www.wlb.us.com. So that gives you all the information. And then again, if you want to see who we really are, the TFZ, tf-z.com, but that's us. We're just normal people, man. We just happen to have a story. We were both team guys. It's a tragic story, some part of it, but it's not. We're both here talking to you right now. So yeah, but Dougie can get into, I guess, the beginning of it if you want, and why he, what the thought process was.
Yeah. So the whole Warriors Left Behind WLB came obviously being in the middle. You don't do it to become a multi-millionaire. You do it earlier, and it kind of would always kind of bother me when we go to like airport stuff, and everyone would thank me for my. And we one flight going somewhere, and the TSA guy's like, "Hey, thank you for your service." I was like, "Well, you should thank her. She's the one who takes the soccer, baseball, gymnastics, pays the bills, blah blah blah." Is the one that doing her own little small business, try to make a little more money so we can afford to take these to gymnastics, and soccer, and baseball, and all that good stuff. That was really where it started. Was to try to military-owned businesses kind of get out, get a little more exposure, and help them get. So, kind of like an Angie's List, or what? Say you're in Fort Hood and Texas, and you're getting ready to get orders, and instead of trying to just, or Yahoo or Google for a plumber or electrician, really go onto a website and the same company, plumber, electrician, whatever, mechanic, who is owned and run a veteran or military guy himself or spouse, family member, and the behind.
That's incredible. And the end goal, I mean, as far as just doing it out of the honor and pride and everything that goes with that.
So the goal is back to, how thank us for this. And if people want to thank, what way is to, instead of buying off, certain companies who part of your stuff is shipped in from over, made their stuff. You can't, there's no better than thank you for your and products from him, which is ultimately help his.
Absolutely. And that is so.
That's and we're not from other countries. It's all right here.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. That is totally very cool. And that is just a very patriotic and prideful type of thing, which I find absolutely amazing. And I think both, it's incredible how much everything is just taking off, and it's wonderful and absolutely marvelous, and just the revolutionary stuff that's coming. I'm so happy that you guys, that everything is going fantastic.
Thank you. And again, not just with our stuff. We talked about the other day, and I won't spoil it, but we talked about the other day, and then, having our network, like, having Taylor on, and, him talking about, Nico, his dog, and all the crap he's doing now going to NASCAR. Dougie getting one of his friends over to you to talk about something that they're doing now. And so we're trying to expand this with our business, with their businesses, and then with you kind of as this conduit. And, because you're doing a hell of a thing here by making people aware. You're doing your part, man, as an American, and just it's awesome what you're doing. People need to know that you're not just sitting here trying to freaking get Instagram likes. You're actually doing something meaningful. And truly from the heart, as an American, as a patriot, just as a person. So we can tie all that in now, and now we have this little network like we talked about, and we go from there, man. I think it'll be phenomenal because, we're having fun doing it. We're getting some exposure and letting people see who we really are, where we came from, what we're doing now, that, we're not just a bunch of robots. We're people. We're cool people.
Absolutely. I always knew you guys were cool. Without even knowing who you were, I knew that for sure. No,
some are
funny.
Cool. So.
What's that?
Right. I said some are cooler than others. But yeah, man, I think that's the biggest thing is just trying to get personal with it, because this day and age, so many forms of phony people and phony military, and I guess us being us and personal with stuff, it brings a little more credibility. I think that's the hardest part with trying to launch stuff, especially if you're using a military background. It just, do they trust you? Are you the truth, or are you just another schmuck who's trying to make a buck off the military name?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I've seen that happen. I know, on multiple occasions, not even to highlight once in particular, but that stuff is so horrible and just disgusting. And quite frankly, again, I'll say, I don't know why anybody would be stupid even to do that, because in all realness, I don't know where they wouldn't think they would get their ass kicked. So, I think that it's definitely something where, you know, what you guys are doing and what you have done, what you've went through, you know, what your guys' family has went through, you know, it just shows so much more honor and pride, and I mean, it does, and it's true. It's absolutely true. And
those are the same douchebags getting that, you know, or that all they care about is Instagram likes, or I mean, I'm sorry, yeah, likes or followers, or you know who their network is. Just that's all they care about. You know, I mean, even with the airsoft community, I have some good friends that have brought me up there to train or hired a company, and these guys are all about respecting. And, you know, like I didn't know what, you know, because I don't do airsoft, but some of these kids and guys my age were phenomenal. And they came up to me and said, hey, look, we're not trying to disrespect you. And, of course, there are those idiots that, you know, in the airsoft community that they have all their shit on, and then they'll just take pictures and allude to the fact that they're spec ops guys. But these other guys have come up to me and they're like, dude, we're doing this out of all the respect for the military. We weren't in the military, but we like what you guys are doing, and we're, you know, just trying to have fun but honor you guys while we're doing it. And I think that's awesome that you have all these walks of life and people know who the dipshits are, but the real people that are doing it, they're doing it. And again, we don't do it for that crap, to be honored. We just do it. But I think it's awesome when all these other guys are doing stuff, and it's really cool, man. I don't, you know, hold any animosity to people that want to get out and go mess around and do that, as long as they are respectful of, you know, hey, this is real. Listen to this story. It's not just go out for 2 hours, have fun, and go back home to your normal life. It's like, you're doing it. This is the crap we sacrificed, so, you know, people can go do this, have fun, or post these pictures. But it's all full circle, right? And I love that, man. I love that people do that, but they're super respectful about it too. It's awesome.
It like goes back to like John. We touched on this the first time we did do our podcast together. It's just, you know, I mean, some guys, you know, obviously seeing the respect, and then other people just totally just thinking, I don't know, like just like they're nuts. Like that's the only thing, you know, as far as how I would even put it. It's like that dude I remember I told you about that dude that I initially had worked with, who was just like totally fat, out of shape dude. And I could say,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and I don't even care, you know what I mean? Because I'll never see this guy again, thank God. But, yeah. But
we'll take care of him for you.
well, you were just going on and on and on about like, you know, and this was like so nuts too, because he had no idea that I did the podcast, and you know, somebody had brought up something with you know, Navy SEALs and the training, and I'm just, you know, doing my work, and this guy's just talking, and he just keeps going like, you know, they're crazy, and there must be something up, because anybody who would do that, and the whole time I was an intern, so like immediately I wanted to just be like, dude, you are a fucking moron, and you don't know what you're saying, and you're being very rude, and you literally look like you're gonna pass out if you go 50 feet. So it's just it's insane. You know what I mean? So it's nuts.
There's all types out there.
I don't know how you guys would put up with it. Power to you guys. You know what I mean? Because
if anything, it's more entertaining.
Can you imagine the guys that came home from Nam? I mean, all the shit that they had to hear. That's just, every time I hear about that, it's just, I couldn't imagine coming home getting after wounded, or Dougie coming home after that happened, and people spitting on him and telling him he's, you know, effed up and this and that, and I would lose my marbles, man. I give total respect to those guys that came back and they had to hear that crap.
Absolutely. I actually had a teacher in college who was a very big liberal, and it was in one of my classes that she had brought up something that happened during Vietnam, and she was really dishonoring the American soldiers who were over there. And I was about to, and this teacher hadn't asked for me the entire time, and you know, I was a senior, and I was like, you know what? I don't even care what she says if she's got more of an ass for me, but I got to say something. And I just said to her, I said, could you only imagine though what they were going through once they were there, and then when they got back. And I think that's so sad that people don't think of that. And it's just you know what I mean? It's like I got that fire in my stomach as not even had been in the military. You know, it's just something where I just look at what they're saying and just say to myself, it's kind of like a what the fuck kind of moment, because it's everything coming out of your mouth. I don't know how anybody could ever find pride in what they're saying if it's negative or geared negative towards guys who are risking their lives for this great country. You know, it's nuts. Different planet.
I have a funny story about that as well. I think I was in high school, and I believe it was my history teacher, very, very liberal, and we were talking about Kent State shooting, and you could see that he was obviously getting very, very upset about what happened. So me trying to be funny in front of my friends, I kind of piped, well, you know, they should have been out like the rest of the men. He literally came across the classroom, picked me up by my shirt, threw me against the wall, and threw me out of the class, and he's like, "You go to your counselor." Looking back, I kind of wish I would be this age now he'd do that, because I'd be a multi-gazillionaire. But, you know, I just kind of laugh, and, you know, my friends laugh. But, yeah, it's that same mentality that he just, by my one little remark, he kind of threw him deep in.
Yeah, so my question to both of you, did they blame Trump?
Oh, mine tried to. Mine tried to, for sure, always. And it just was something where, you know, I just, the entire time, I was always very rebuttaling, you know what I mean, to anything that they were saying. I really didn't care. I just had this, like, thing in my stomach where I was like, you know what, if I don't say something, and I was, like, never, ever, like, I was always kind of, I guess, nervous to be outspoken, because I'll tell you what, honestly, being in college during Trump's campaign and everything, I talk about it with my friends all the time. My three best friends, they're triplets. Their father was a captain in the Army. And, you know, they're huge Trump supporters as well. You know, I mean, huge. And as Trump would say it. And you know, going through college during that time, oh my God, it was not even dramatizing it. It was like a prejudice. Like when he got inaugurated, I had friends, you know, who were, you know, so happy. And I'm out here in Western Pennsylvania, which primarily, I mean, is a very patriotic area, you know, and conservative too. And if you so much as said anything, they were just immediately had a blank face stare towards you. They always completely dishonored him. It was hard to sit through at times. It really was. It was sickening.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It was nuts.
It is nuts, but that's the crazy world we live in now. Where if they don't agree with you or they don't like what you're saying, that they just completely outcast you. So much for having a fair debate and trying to understand one another.
Oh yeah, well we got a school. I remember we got it. My friend actually told me about it. I barely ever checked my email with my school email, and there was a big notice that went around that somebody had put up a pro-Trump chalk sign. And I'm thinking, you know, oh, this girl who has the right mindset, she's probably a babe, writes this really nice chalk sign, you know, about Trump, and then, boom, right off the bat, it's washed off. It's completely gone. And there's a notice that went around the school where, you know, you're not to be doing that. You're not to be doing that. It's offending other people. And it's just kind of like, what the hell? Like, how is that any bit offensive? You know, you got to get with the times. And I just don't understand. It was so nuts. But I'm telling you, like, seriously, I say it to all the time that going through his campaign, it's like my version of like a historic time, because it really was. It was insane, because teachers really just they would just do anything and everything to just neglect him and dishonor him, and anything that he said, their retaliation was full force. I had a friend who wore a t-shirt to class and sat in the front of the class. He paid attention, and boom, he was out. The teacher made him leave the classroom. And he was like, what the fuck? You know, I mean, his dad is my best friend. His father was a captain in the Army. So it's just like, it's just asinine.
Nah, it is. It's, I mean, we can talk about this subject a whole other podcast for 4 or 5 hours, but craziness.
Well,
I guess going back on the previous topic about the family and situation. So having a mother that's gone through two major ordeals in Afghanistan, she's took it upon herself to author a book, which kind of excited to read when she finally does finish, and it's kind of the mother's perspective of behind his story.
Yeah, so that's awesome because she took it upon herself to do it, which is great. She's not really getting our, she's getting our facts to make sure it's accurate, but she's not trying to write another Navy SEAL book or anything like that. She's just writing her experience as a mom and all the crap she's had to go through this and how it's affected her and the family. And so she's, she's working diligently on it, man. Hopefully we can, boost some promotion on it. And I mean, the read will be good, but it's mainly for all these other people to read, not just people that want to read SEAL books. It's like, oh shit, that's a whole different, outlook on it.
That's incredible. So how long has your mom been working on the book?
I think off and on, probably a couple of years now, but I think just with certain jobs that, I didn't have, she was kind of hesitant about, putting business out. But I think she's got serious about past, 6-8 months now, going strong. And, so people have their, things, and especially in our community about writing books. And I'm 50-50. It's a book, just nothing on how cool I am and I love me book type deal. And, I'm badass and I did this overseas. That's kind of a dumb book. But if you write it in a way of, as a community, and this is what guys were doing overseas, because growing up, elementary school, junior high, I was reading Vietnam era SEAL books, and so anyway, that's kind of what got me, going in this direction. But the cool thing about her is, it's not me and him about, how cool we are and we did this and blah blah blah. It's it's just kind of a mother's take of two sons who chose this profession, and the stuff that happened, and the effects on the family and all that.
That's incredible.
Which I think it will hit many hundreds of thousands of service members, mothers and kids who have gone stuff they've had to endure, ups and downs.
Well, that's cool too, because I mean it's even a change up. You know what I mean? On and I'm sure that's something that I often think about, and I know others do as well. Is how the family is reacting to what's going on. I mean, even John, you saying not knowing what was happening to Dougie when you got word of what was taking place, and vice versa. At your going away party, Dougie, what you were thinking when you heard that John was shot, what the families were thinking, who's not over there, and that is a total change up, but an absolutely incredible line out. That's very cool.
No, yeah, it is. And I've we touched on that earlier with the whole WLB and the startup of the thank yous, and our lives overseas are relatively, pretty easy, especially in our units. We wake up, we go to a meeting and see if we're working that night. If we are, we hit the gym and get ready to go work. If not, we hang out, play video games, do whatever, and then wait for the next night to see if we're working. We know what's going on. We're there in the moment. It's the families that, when we don't talk to them for 2, 3, 4 weeks that, are constantly living the unknown of, and especially with us our sole purpose over there is to actually go engage the enemy and get in a gunfight. So yeah, I mean, it's a whole total realm for the ones back home.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And people need to be aware of it. That's what I love about these is we're making people aware of it. It's not just stories about war and shit like that. It's It's stories. It's real. It lets everybody else know what everybody else or what the other family members and friends were thinking and going through. It's, it's not just like, oh, this is cool. I'm a really cool freaking dude. I used to be anyway, and this is what I did. It's, hey, there's more to the story. It one little event affects hundreds of people's lives, man. So that's kind of what I love about this is the awareness that it's bringing.
Right on. Well, hey, guys, I want to say thank you again for being on the show again. Part 2, it's accomplished. We got to get part 3, too. That will happen. Doug, whenever you get back. Yeah.
Nah, man, but like I said, I leave next week sometime. Let's maybe try to get part 3 going from the live from the Middle East.
Oh, that would be
That'd
cool.
be awesome. That'd be really cool, like an RPG or like some like alarms went off in the background for you should plan it for that. Next time you hear it, just let's do it.
Maybe I'll pay off some locals to launch a mortar at us so the alarms start going off.
Yeah.
Gives me chills. That would be very sweet. Fuck yeah. Hey, guys, thanks so much, man. Definitely part 3, back on, not stopping there. Totally kick-ass. Johnny, Dougie, thank you so much for being on the show again, guys.
Yeah, brother. Have a good man. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
Anytime. You guys both be safe. Looking forward to part 3. Guys, Dougie Gallaher and Johnny Beltran for part 2. This is Matt with Patriots Corner. We're signing off. All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks for listening. Take care.
Later. See you. Bye.